Good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Walid Phares. I am the Provost and Director of International Relations at BAU International. Very happy that today we are sponsored by BAU International and co-sponsored by members of the U.S. House of Representatives. This is a remarkable setting with speakers, including our chairman, with members of Congress, including a congressman who's going to come immediately and begin the remarks. So in introduction, let me just say that there has been many questions, and this panel is going to try to answer those questions. The first question has been in America about what is happening in the world. Why are there reactions that we see in the news? So we begin where the public attention is. But there has been also many questions coming from the Middle East. And those questions have been why America has not been able to understand some of these issues, some of these crises. The panel today and the chairman and the members of the panel are going to be trying to answer some of these questions. This is a unique panel on the ground of the United States Congress, in the middle of a change between the old Congress and the new Congress coming early next year, with intellectual messages to be leveled to the Congress and through the Congress to the American public. We are going to be having a panel chaired by Chairman Enver Yucel, who is the founder and chairman of Bashir Uyghur Educational Institutions. His message is going to be a new message. It's going to have a content that Americans and international public opinion needs to hear. And as you know already, it's about education, the global economy, but even more than that. He is a pioneer. He has been a pioneer in Turkey in the field of education at all levels, from the kindergarten level all the way to the university, building and launching a marvelous university in Istanbul, but also marching throughout the world in a very peaceful manner and building campus after campus, from Rome to Berlin to Toronto to California, Hong Kong, Africa. He will tell you more about the projects, but one of his projects is in Washington, D.C. And our team here is part of that project. Enver Bey has a vision which is now addressed to the U.S. Congress at a time where it is going to be very difficult for the international community to address the challenges. His message is about how to meet that challenge with the big E. And the big E is education. I don't want to anticipate about his message because it's going to be something unique. I know part of what he's going to be announcing, but not all of it. The panel will have also impressive speakers. Professor Dr. Selcuk Sirin, who is an associate professor at NYU, and the bio that you already have is very telling. Has been and continue to be and will be a leader in the educational field, both in the United States and in Turkey as well. He is an author who's prolific, both in Turkey and here. He's also a TV personality, like me. Our third speaker will be Dr. Daniel Sherman, Managing Economist at the American Institute for Research, also a prominent researcher with great ideas. And we hope to hear from him about these ideas. And of course, Dr. Sinem, who's the president of BAU International, my president. She's also here on the panel. She will share with us remarks and ideas, but also she will be reading a message coming from a newly elected member of the leadership in the House of Representatives. So we are having this conversation on education at a time where changes are taking place in other rooms. We have new leadership forming, and those leadership are going to come and share with us some of their ideas. So our first speaker, if I am correct, our first speaker just arrived, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, who is a well-known lawmaker, who has been long time a champion of supporting education, and he's here to be with us in the launching of this new basket of ideas between the United States and Turkey, but really across the world. Congressman, thank you. Please come to the podium.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor and a privilege to be here, and I certainly greatly appreciate the invitation to participate in the launching of what I think will be a phenomenal opportunity, certainly for the people that I represent back at home in the district that I serve in Brooklyn and a little bit of Queens, but certainly exciting not just for the country, but for the world. We increasingly have become a world that is interconnected through the technology explosion that has taken place, through the economic ties that currently exist, and we certainly look forward to continuing to build our economic relationship with our good friends in Turkey and other parts of the world. But the glue that connects everything, and we certainly appreciate the vision of Mr. Yucel and all that he's done, the glue that connects everything is education. And in the district that I represent, back home in Brooklyn, one of the clear challenges that we face is to make sure that we adequately prepare our children for the challenges of the 21st century economy and the opportunities, particularly in innovation and in the so-called broader STEM fields. And in order for us, the children, the young people that I represent, to compete, in order for the city of New York to continue to be what I believe is the greatest city in the world, certainly in the country, in order for the United States to continue to thrive, we've got to make sure that our educational system keeps up with the technological changes that are taking place, and that in science and technology and engineering and in mathematics, we can provide a first-rate education. That's why this partnership and the opportunities that are presented will be tremendous. That's why I'm looking forward to working closely together and seeing how we can bring these opportunities to life in the neighborhoods that I serve back home in Brooklyn and in parts of Queens. And that's why not just the city of New York, but the country and the world, indeed, will continue to benefit from the work that is being done. As I take my seat, I found it interesting through my work on the Judiciary Committee, where companies, technological companies all across the country have come to us on the Judiciary Committee and said that we would like to see an increase in visas for highly skilled immigrants from other parts of the world to fill vacancies in the technology and innovation economy in this country that are as high as 25% of the workforce. And these are good paying jobs that provide a permanent residence in the middle class, if not a greater degree of prosperity. And the vacancy rate in this country is about 25%. And so it's clear to me that there's tremendous opportunity if we can only make sure that we give our children and our young people the tools, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics tools to connect with that opportunity in order to allow them to more robustly pursue the American dream. So I thank you for your presence here today. It's an honor to see you here in the halls of the Congress, this great democracy that we have. And I thank you for the tremendous work that you've done and will continue to do. God bless you. God bless Turkey. God bless the United States of America.
Thank you so much, Mr. Congressman, and hopefully we will see you in our action plan in the future. Thank you so much. Now I have the privilege and the honor and the excitement to introduce to you or reintroduce to you our chairman, who has a vision that needs to be heard, not just by members of Congress and their staffers, the new and the old Congress, but also by the administration and also by the American public. Because in the greatest democracy on earth, those ideas will become alive if they have the support of the public. So this is the beginning of a campaign that will begin in Washington, will go to New York, back to Istanbul. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the chairman, Enver Bey.
Thank you very much. Nasılsınız arkadaşlar? Amerikan Kongresi Eğitim Komisyonu'nda bu konuşma fırsatı verildiği için ve bu eğitimle ilgili etkinliğin gerçekleştirilmesi için yapılan çalışmaları bir eğitimci olarak takdir ediyorum ve herkese emeklerinden dolayı teşekkür ediyorum. Tabii ki ben bir eğitimciyim. Dünyanın neresine gidersem gideyim, eğitimle ilgili herhangi bir iş, konuşma, eylem, girişim varsa içinde olmaya gayret ediyorum. Onun için de kendimi mutlu hissediyorum. Çünkü eğitim geleceğimizdir, eğitim her şeyimizdir. Yani eğitim şarttır. Bugünkü gündemimiz, konuşma gündemimiz eğitimin ekonomiyle olan ilişkisidir. Eğitimin kalkınma ile olan ilişkisidir. Daha doğrusu eğitim ne kadar lazımdır? Bu konu gündemiyle bu paneli tertiplemiş oluyor arkadaşlarımız. Ben de kısmen eğitim ekonomi ilişkisine, kalkınmaya, kısmen de eğitimin gelecekte nasıl olması gerektiği ile ilgili konuşmamı sürdüreceğim. Değerli arkadaşlar, eğitimle ekonomi son yıllarda özellikle birbirinden ayrılmaz, birbirini bütünleyen iki etmen haline gelmiştir. Eğer ekonomiden bahsediyorsak mutlaka eğitimden bahsetmemiz gerekiyor. Ekonomilerin iyileşmesi, sürdürülebilir kalkınmanın lokomotifi artık eğitim olmuştur. Bununla ilgili dünyanın çeşitli yerlerinde, üniversitelerinde çok önemli bilim insanları araştırmalar yapıyor. Ben birkaç tanesinden bahsedeceğim. Tabii dünya kadar araştırmalar var ama burada vaktiniz o kadar çok almak istemiyorum. Chicago Üniversitesi'nden Nobel ödüllü Robert Lucas araştırmaların birinde şu sonuca ulaşmıştır. Ekonomik büyümenin ana motoru insan sermayesinin yani bilginin birikerek artmasıdır ve ülkelerin yaşam standartlarındaki farklılıkların ana kaynağı da insan sermayesindeki farklılıklardır demiş. Yani tabii bizzat ben kendi birey olarak yaşamımdan da bunu görüyorum. Ben Türkiye'nin çok farklı kırsal bölgesinden gelen bir insanım. Eğitimim sayesinde belki kısmen arkadaşlarımdan daha farklı noktalara gelmişliğim vardır. Ve bugün de Amerikan Kongresi'nde Eğitim Komisyonu'nda bu toplantıyı yapma şansını bana vermiştir. Neden de eğitimdir. Eğitimle uğraşmamdır, eğitim almamdır. Bu şu demek değildir. Birey olarak çok çalışkan olduğum, çok fırsatlar verildiği değildir. Ama eğitimle ilgili yapılması gerekenleri yaptığım için eğitim alınmayanlara göre farklılaşmışımdır. Şunu anlatmaya çalışıyorum. Bireyin hayatında da, toplumun hayatında da, ülkelerin hayatında da eğitim farklılaştırıyor. Okul öncesi eğitimde aldığınız bir yıl ki okul öncesi eğitim genelde 1 yıl yapılır ve 2 yıl yapılır. Buna eğer 1 lira harcıyorsanız 7 lira olarak size geri dönüşü oluyor. Demek ki eğitimin bireyin hayatında çok önemli bir etkisi vardır. Yine Nobel ödüllü Profesör Joseph Stiglitz'in yapmış olduğu toplumu bütünüyle eğitmedikten sonra toplumsal barışın da ekonomik kalkınmanın da yine olamayacağından bahseder. Evet, hep birlikte görüyoruz. Şunu artık inanmalıyız ki ister gelişen toplumlar olsun, isterse gelişmekte olan toplumlar olsun, ekonominin içerisinde eğitimi mutlaka almalıdırlar. Burada eğitimle ekonomi arasındaki ilişkiyi çok daha fazla uzatmak istemiyorum. Hep birlikte yaşıyoruz. Dünya değişiyor, değişmeye devam ediyor. Kültürler, medeniyetler hayatiyetini devam ettiriyor. Bunlar yapılırken dünyada karmaşa da devam ediyor. Türkiye'de, dünyada halen yoksulluk devam ediyor. Türkiye'de, dünyada halen salgın hastalıklar devam ediyor. Dünyanın problemleri bir hayli fazla. Ama aslında biz insanlar, insanlığın gelişmesi adına teknolojiler ürettik, yollar yaptık, insanların birbiriyle ulaşımını sağlamaya çalıştık ama bir şeyi başaramadık. Birlikte yaşam kültürünü içselleştiremedik. Dünya, insanlık bugün en güzel teknolojileri geliştirip dünyayı adeta küçük bir köy haline getirdik. Bu neden olduğu sorgusunu söylemiyorum. Ama yalnız başına yetmediğini söylemek istiyorum. O zaman evet, eğitim önemli. Eğitim ekonominin lokomotifi diyoruz. Ama o zaman diyeceğiz ki nasıl bir eğitim? Nasıl bir eğitim yapmalıyız ki bundan sonra hem ülkelerin, toplumların hem de dünyanın geleceğiyle ilgili daha iyi umutlar besleyelim. Burada ekonominin dışına çıkmadan bir konuya daha temas etmek istiyorum. Nasıl eğitim ararken çok maddi kaynaklar yatırdığınız zaman eğitime, eğitim mutlaka iyi olacaktır anlamına da gelmiyor. Onun için soruyoruz nasıl bir eğitim diye. Örnekleri verecek olursak 1960 yılından 2000'li yıllara kadar Mısır %100 ilkokulda okullaşmayı sağladı. Erişimi sağladı. Ortaokullarda %78 artış gösterdi. Üniversitelerde de %20 artış gösterdi. Ama ekonomilerine baktığınız zaman bu artışı göremiyoruz. Yine Peru'dan örnek verecek olursak, okullaşmayı ve eğitime erişimi 3-4 kat artırdılar. Ama ekonomik boyut olarak yine bunu göremiyoruz. Ama bir taraftan şunu görüyoruz. Güney Kore, Hong Kong, Singapur. Buradaki örneklere baktığımız zaman özellikle Güney Kore'de ve kalkınmasının teknolojinin olmazsa olmazı bir noktada eğitim oluyor. Demek ki nasıl eğitim sorusunu sorduğumuz zaman bunu aramak durumundayız. O zaman eğitimin erişimi, eğitimin çoğallaşmasını, her kesimde, her yerde eğitime mükemmel yatırımlar yapsanız, demek ki okullarımızdaki eğitimin kaliteli olması gerekiyor. Eğitim kaliteli olmak durumundadır. Singapur, Güney Kore ve Hong Kong'un eğitimle ilgili yaptığı iş adeta kaliteli eğitimi de başardığı içindir. Demek ki ülkelerin eğitime harcadıkları paranın, sermayenin her geçen gün daha fazla olsa da bile bununla ilgili nasıl bir eğitim, kaliteli eğitimi arıyor olması lazım. Ekonomiyle eğitimin bu ilişkisinden sonra toplumlardaki eğitimin başka neler yapması ve nelere etkin olduğu konusuyla ilgili de biraz o konuya da değinmek istiyorum. Başlangıçta şunu söyledik. Birlikte yaşam kültürü dedik. Birlikte yaşam kültürünü içselleştiremedik dedik. Evet, eğitimle ekonomi arasında ilişki var. Ekonominin temelini oluşturuyor. Ama aynı zamanda biz şuna da bakmamız lazım. Dünya insanların, ülkelerin giderleri ne? Nereye para harcıyoruz? Sağlığa ne kadar harcıyoruz? Eğitime ne kadar para harcıyoruz? Güvenliğe ne kadar para harcıyoruz? Acaba dünya barışına, eğitime daha fazla katkı yapsak, daha fazla paralar harcasak dünya barışını sağlayabilir miyiz? Burada soru sormamız lazım. O zaman eğitimin yapması gereken işlerin başında sadece mekanik ve teknoloji olarak değil, birlikte yaşam kültürünü sağlayacak temelleri atmamız lazım. Okullarımızda barışı anlatmamız lazım. Sevgiyi anlatmamız lazım. Huzuru anlatmamız lazım. Ve bununla ilgili derslerimizde, kitaplarımızda ülkeleri ve insanları ötekileştiren, aşağılayan sözleri kaçınılmamız lazım, ayıklamamız lazım. Ülke çocukları geçmişiyle, tarihiyle, kahramanlarıyla tabii ki övünecektir. Ama bir medeniyeti, bir toplumu insanları aşağılayarak bunu yapmaması gerekir. Hep birlikte kitaplarımızı bu konuyla ilgili birazcık daha dikkatlice hazırlamamızda fayda olduğu kanaatindeyim. Değerli eğitim gönüllüsü dostlarımız, arkadaşlarımız, sizlere şu örnekten de vermek istiyorum. Örnekten ziyade bulunduğum coğrafyadan örnek vermek istiyorum. Bulunduğum coğrafyada kültür ve medeniyetlerle ilgili dünyanın gözü önünde cereyan eden olaylar var. Bu olayların başında ve Türkiye'nin en büyük sorunu, hatta sadece Türkiye'nin değil, dünyanın çok önemli bir sorunu ve ülkenin önemli bir sorunu, Suriye sorunu. Adeta Suriye sorunu haline geldi. Tabii Suriye'de yaşanan bu çalışmalar, gelişmeler komşumuz olduğu için bizi çok daha fazla ilgilendirdi ve ilgilendirmeye de devam ediyor. Türkiye'de 1.600.000 Suriyeli vatandaş göçmen olarak yaşamaya başladı. Bilim insanları bu insanların en erken 6 yıldan önce yuvalarını, evlerine dönemeyeceğini söylüyor. Bana soruyorsanız %80 belki de hiç dönmeyecek. Bu insanlar içerisinde 600'e yakın akademisyen üniversitelerini terk etmişler, Türkiye'de yaşıyorlar. 50.000'e yakın öğrenci üniversitelerini terk etmişler ve üniversite eğitimlerinden şu anda yoksun olarak Türkiye'de, bölgede dolaşıyorlar. Şimdi bu büyük sorun sadece Türkiye'nin sorunu olmamalıdır. Bunu söylerken bir eğitim girişimcisi olarak şunu da buradan söylemek istiyorum. Çözüm tabii ki vardır. Çözüm dünyanın duyarlı olmasından geçmektedir. Sorun sadece o bölgenin sorunu değildir, olmamalıdır. Bütün dünyanın sorunudur. Ben diyorum ki ve bu Amerikan Kongresi'nden bütün dünyaya da seslenmek istiyorum. Bu çocuklar eğitilmelidir. Bu çocukların eğitimi sadece Türkiye'nin ve kendileri için menfaat değil, bütün dünyanın bu işte menfaati vardır. Eğer bu çocuklar eğitilmezlerse yarın en başta belki o bölgedeki toplumun başına ama dünyanın başına da bela olabilirler. Bu konuyla ilgili bir eğitim girişimcisi olarak girişimlerde bulunuyorum. O bölgede Barış Üniversitesi kurulması fikrini ortaya atıyorum. en başta Birleşmiş Milletler olmak üzere sivil toplum örgütlerine bu duyarlılığa çağrıda bulunmak istiyorum. Bunları yaparken çocuklarımıza okullarımızda teknolojinin yanında matematik, fen alanında, sanat alanında dersler anlatırken barışı mutlaka anlatmak durumundayız. Hiçbir medeniyet, hiçbir kültür insanlığın aleyhine bir çalışma içerisinde olamaz. Yine çok yakında bölgemizde inançları gereğince güya insanlar boğazlanırken bunu hiçbir medeniyet adına yapamazlar. Hiçbir medeniyet bunu emretmez. Yine çok yakın tarihimizde, bir hafta 10 gün önce, dünyadaki 1 milyar 300 milyon insanın en kutsal ibadet ettiği yere, Mescid-i Aksa'ya, bütün dünyanın gözü önünde yapılan bu işlerin ne anlama geldiğini, ne gelebileceğini ve gelecek nesillere neyi bırakacağını bir düşünmelisiniz. Hiç kimse şunu söyleyemez. Bu saldırıları yapanlar, bunun emrini verenler hiçbir medeniyete mensup olamazlar. Hatta o medeniyetlerin asla hiçbir suçu yoktur ve olamazlar. O zaman ülkelerini yönetenler, ülkelerini yönetmeye talip olan liderler daha global düşünüp belki o anda ülkelerinde iktidarda olabilirler. İktidarlarının sürdürülebilmesi için kalabilirler ama insanlığa ve geçmişe neler bırakabileceğini bıraktıklarında iyi düşünmelidirler diyorum. Onun için barış içinde, huzur içinde insanların birbiriyle yaşayabilmeleriyle ilgili eğitimin, teknolojinin yanında bu tarafına da bakılması lazım. Biz tabii ki üretken bir ekonomi istiyoruz. Üreten ekonomi istiyoruz. Eğitim üretken olsun istiyoruz. Girişimci olsun, lider toplumlar, ülkeler, insanlık, dünya olsun istiyoruz. Ama bir taraftan da bunların gideri için bir kapıyı da kesmemiz lazım. Düşünün, toplumlar silahlara verdikleri paradan önce eğitime yatırım yaptıklarını anlayabilirlerse o toplum işte o zaman daha fazla hem kalkınacak hem daha fazla sürdürülebilir yükselmesine devam edecektir. Benim bir eğitim girişimcisi olarak söylemek istediğim şudur. Bir, eğitimle ekonomiyi birbirinden ayıramayız. Gelişmişliğin temeli eğitimdir. İkincisi, dünya barışı, kalkınma için olmazsa olmazıdır. Çocuklarımıza, geleceğimize huzurlu bir dünya arıyorsak barışı öğretmeliyiz ve insanları birbiriyle, yaşam kültürüyle iç içe bırakmalıyız. Bu duygu, düşüncelerle hepinize bu fırsatı bana verdiğiniz için teşekkür ediyorum. Sağlıklar diliyorum. Teşekkür ederim.
Enver Bey, Chairman, thank you so much for your words of wisdom. And indeed, they were uttered here in the Congress, not just for the Congress, but for the public, and not just for our public. I hope that in the next weeks, when you are going to be coming back and going to New York, that your message will be sent to the international community, and it's crucial. At this point in time, I would like to invite President of BAU International, Dr. Sinem, to read a message from a lawmaker who sent us a note of support. But by the time we got this letter, he was just elected as we were here as the president of the Republican Council, meaning the committee to coordinate the majority in the House. So it has even more value now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Welcome. Dear Mr. Yujan, I'm writing to commend you on your efforts to highlight the importance of education in today's economy. As a member of the Committee on Education and the Workforce, and as a long-time proponent of expanding educational opportunities for students worldwide, I'm encouraged to learn about BAU International University's efforts to increase access to unique educational opportunities to students here in our nation's capital. Although I'm unable to attend your reception and panel discussion, I'm certain participants will benefit from learning about BAU International University and its work in Washington, D.C. I look forward to your continuing efforts to increase educational opportunities and strengthen the already strong bond between the U.S. and Turkey. Sincerely, Luke Masser, Member of Congress. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now I'd like to invite our second speaker, a man and a scholar, as I said, who has been at the heart of the Turkish-American debate, but also transatlantic debate, Dr. Sirin. Please come to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and thanks for coming this late in the afternoon. I would like to begin with some definitions. Since I'm a professor, I like to make sure that we are all talking about the same thing. So when we say new economy, we have to define what we are talking about in terms of old and new. So the old economy, as we speak, refers to economy that we build based on resources, natural resources for the most part. It's tied to geography, the place, geopolitics of the country or a state. It's also based on culture. So these are, in general terms, three factors that define old economy. So what is new economy in reference to the old economy? Well, when we talk about new economy, we are talking about not as much about culture, not as much about geopolitics of the country, not even natural resources. The countries that are defined by new economy are the countries that know how to cultivate talent. So we are talking about skills-based economy. These are the countries, nations who learn how to teach better skills for their new generations in schools and other places so that they can produce more. So the stars of new economy, if you look at the world scene in terms of GDP per capita, we are talking about small countries like Finland, Nordic countries outside of Norway. Norway has some natural resources, but other countries. Also places like Korea, right, which is a star that Mr. Yucel mentioned. So how are they doing it? And that's what I really would like to talk in the few minutes that I have. So since we are in the US, let's talk about a couple of statistics just to put everything in context. In terms of high-tech exports, so the percentage of export that is belong to high technology, the number one country in the world is China. About a quarter of what they are exporting is high-tech. Number two is Korea, and number three is Switzerland. US is only at number 9, and it's slipping. In terms of patents, so this is a good sign and a good indicator of high-tech innovation-based economy. The number one country is Korea. By far, it's producing the highest number of patents per capita, of course. Number two is Japan, and again, United States is now number 3. It used to be about 20 years ago, it used to be number 1, but it's slipping. In terms of R&D spending from the GDP, as a percentage of GDP, how much a country spends in research and development. Number 1, as you can guess by now, is Korea. They are spending the most, and as a result, they produce the most. Israel is number 2. Finland, as I mentioned earlier, is number 3. And United States is at number 10. In all of these indicators, I can go on with this kind of indicators. These are indicators of new economy. In all of these indicators, United States is slipping. In other words, they were once the leading country, especially when the old economy was ruling, but no longer. And I think we are only seeing the first signs of the countries like Korea and Finland. I think we are going to see huge improvements in the next decade. There are several other countries like that. So why? What's happening here? So if it is based on skills, we have to look at some data there. OECD, as you may know, is about 34 country membership. United States is part of it. Founding member Turkey is also a part of it. OECD is an economic corporation, right? It helps its members to develop their economy. In the last decade or so, the major business that OECD does is education. They do extensive testing throughout their member states and beyond. And you may have heard of some of the titles of their tests. PISA, have you heard PISA? Yeah? A lot of you guys heard it. It's a major statistical tool for us researchers to refer to a country's success in education. So PISA is 15-year-olds, math, science, and reading. If you look at PISA, and PISA is a good indicator for skills-based economy because it tells you the degree to which a country educates their young people to join the new economy. So if you look there, United States is in math at number 30. In reading, a little bit better, number 20. In science, number 23rd. It's nowhere, if you compare all the advanced countries, developed countries, it's nowhere near to any one of those. It is actually below the OECD average. So this is for 15-year-olds. OECD also has another scale that is looking at adults, age 16 to 65. If you look at there in terms of data, United States, and there are not that many countries joining that database, only 24, but United States is the third from the last. Third from the last. In what? In numeracy skills for adults. These are, 2 times 2, 4 kind of basics as well as advanced. United States is not doing great. If you look at literacy, same thing, a little bit better, but at number 16, 8 from the last. The best part that they are doing is in problem solving. And that could give us a clue about why United States is still doing so well in terms of productivity. Despite limited literacy skills, despite limited numeracy skills, numerical skills, United States is doing great because the problem-solving skills, creativity is still encouraged in schools. But there is also another explanation for why United States is doing so well. It's us, immigrants. They can cultivate talent. I grew up in Turkey. I'm here. I'm a professor in New York. A lot of people, I think if you go around this room, either first or second or third generation immigrants. And that is one unique element about this country that enables it to compete despite the fact that we have these failing statistics. So I want to move a little bit further and talk about solutions. I think the solutions lie in innovation. Innovation in education in particular. We have school systems. How many minutes do I have left?
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I want to tell a couple of stories I want to make.
Share,
so if you give me like 3 minutes remarks.
Please.
Yeah. So if we go back to how we can cultivate innovation, we have to look at schools. Schools, as we know it, is really an outdated institution. It was designed around 17th, 18th century in England, where everything is agriculture. Even the seasons that we have, there's no reason, there's no justification why we open schools in fall. I mean, why? In cold weather, why are we, I have 2 kids, they hate getting up too early. Why? We don't have to do any of this. And I'm not even sure if we really need school buildings, or this set of learning. So we have to really do innovation. And the good thing is we have I'm a statistician, so I would like to talk with data as much as I like telling stories. OECD also has a database. And this is about innovation in education. So if you look at that database, United States is number 1 in only one aspect. Any guesses in what area of education United States is most innovative? Any guesses?
No.
Testing.
Oh.
They are doing great in testing.
We have
best
AIR
test.
people here.
I know. I'm referring to my good colleague who is here from AIR, Ebru. So she was in charge of TIMS database, which some of the data I represented is from there. So we are doing great in testing. But in other areas of education, we are not doing great. In curriculum development, we are not doing great. in changing school buildings. You know, a lot of the, if you go to Korea and other places, they are experimenting, which is not what we are doing here. So we really have to pay attention to that. There's other elements as well. Early childhood education. United States is the worst country in terms of both quality and participation in G20 top developed countries in terms of early childhood education. The quality is not great, and participation rate changed from state to state. So we have to do something about it. As Mr. Yucel mentioned, for every dollar you spend in early childhood education, you get $7 back. And there is no other level in education where you can get that kind of investment return. So we really have to do something around this. And also, maybe I would end it with this note, that we really have to do something about teaching profession. I know it's a very difficult area to reform, but it's an area that needs reform. I think it's outdated. I would like to thank you for listening to me. I would also like to thank Mr. Yucel for enabling me an opportunity to share my ideas with you. This actually is, I told this to him earlier, this year a Turkish university opened 2 additional universities in the world. One in Berlin, which I actually attended that session there. One here, and a third university is about to open in Georgia. This has never been done before in the history of higher education. A single institution, a group with a vision, opening 3 different campuses, and this is coming out of Turkey. For those from Turkey, I think we should feel proud because we all came here to study. Now we are here to teach as well and to provide a vision for education that is very unique. So thank you so much, Mr. Yucel, for giving us this opportunity. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you, Professor. I have been traditionally always intimidated by statisticians. I enjoy the results of statistics, but I'm not good at math. The math of the ideas, maybe. And now another admiration is to those who are economists, actually specialists. So I deal with international politics, but without these 2 pillars, you can't really operate. So Dr. Sherman, please come to the podium.
Thank you. I have a handout I'd like to send out to we have a chance to keep one copy. Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here. I am an economist at the American Institutes for Research. Everything I talk about is my own opinion, not that of my company. And I do want to build on what the congressperson said about really the link between education and skills. And they're not the same thing, and I think that's what we're learning. And in the old economy, particularly in the new economy, skills are very important. And education, basically the bottom line, the conclusion of my talk, is education has to convey people to skills, or give people skills. What we discover is that it always doesn't. When economists talk about education, they often talk about human capital. And that's the notion, an economy is just more than the machinery there. It's the people in the economy, but also what they learn, the skills that they have, what they learn in school, what they learn on the job, how they apply it to work. And human capital, skills in an economy, just doesn't benefit the individual. I mean, there's a lot of research out there, and we know it fairly well, that as people have more education, hopefully they have more skills, they have higher earnings. But at the same time, having a skilled workforce, having a skilled population, affects the way the economy works. I think the internet is a good example, because the internet by itself is something of a tool, a machine. If people don't know how to use it, it may be tremendously productive. Maybe it isn't productive, but it's there. People have to have the skills to be able to get online, use it. And as a result of that, you can see how business has expanded. You know, we have businesses that didn't exist, new innovation, new technology. So education and skills not only increase people's earnings, but it also improves the ability of an economy to innovate, to adopt innovation. It's not enough just to come up with new things. People have to be able to use those new things and apply them. So, in terms of economics and the economy, and human capital too, a lot of the research that has been done, what I'll call old-style research, 1950s, 60s, 70s, was looking at the relationship between earnings and years of schooling. And I'll repeat that, years of schooling. Essentially looking at the quantity of education that people had, asking the question, if people had more education, had an additional year of education, went to college, would they earn more? So you can see, I kind of set that up. There's a fallacy there. It's not necessarily looking at what people are learning, what the quality of the education is. And obviously, you know, if you've been reading the newspaper, you know there's a lot of concern about the quality of our schools. Here in this country and all countries, too. And there's a concern, you know, students are going to school and they're just not learning what they need to know. We heard about PISA. The United States and a large number of countries, I think it's about 60, 65, is somewhere in the middle. I don't remember where Turkey was, but it's a test of 15-year-olds. And one of the interesting things about PISA, you can say, why do we care about the skills of 15-year-olds? Well, those are the people who are going to get into the workforce soon. You may be familiar with some work that Enver Yucel did with PISA. It's fairly well cited. And it was asking the question, okay, suppose countries were more like Finland, you know, at the top of the list. What would happen to their economic growth? And it takes a while for an education system to develop to affect the economy. So Yucel was asking the question, what would happen if nations could get their test scores up to where Finland was? Kind of a thought experiment. And he took it very far, he and his colleagues, out to the year 2090. And if the US could become more like Finland, however that's possible in terms of the skills, the education, we, the US, would add about $100 trillion to the economy. That's 7 times current GDP. The farther away you are, the further down you are, if you will, the difference, the bigger the gain. Turkey would add $21 trillion. That's 16 times its GDP. And I know those numbers seem huge, and there's a lot of caveats, a lot of concerns you can put around them. But you have to realize that's over an 80-year period or so. If you kind of bring it back to what an annual average is, it's saying if we could improve our education system, we could have we in the United States could have an economy that maybe was 10% bigger. If Turkey did the same, its economy could be about 20% bigger. So just to bring those back here. We heard a little bit about PIAC. So PISA is talking about 15-year-olds. PIAC's a very interesting data set. It's 23, 24 countries, OECD countries. Doesn't include Turkey in this analysis. But it was done recently. It's working age population. And it tells you about 3 aspects of skills. It's not just asking what education do people have, but it's going out measuring the skills in literacy, ability to read and use words, numeracy, the ability to use numbers, and then also working in a technological environment using spreadsheets and such. You can look at an average score here, and out of the 23 countries, the US is pretty far down. 16 on literacy. I counted 21 out of numeracy out of 23. And out of the countries, I actually counted differently. It seemed fairly low on the technological skills. I'm going to talk a little bit about the US, but if you're interested in other countries, there's a lot of information on the OECD website. Just a couple of conclusions, a couple of things to look at that I think tell you where the United States is, what some of our concerns are, where other countries are too. The first thing we learned looking at PIAC is there's a lot of people in the United States with low skills. PIAC's talking about 195 million individuals or so. 18% of them, 35 million people, have the most basic literacy. And what was really surprising to me, out of these 35 million people, 2/3 of them went to high school, or even some went to college. So we're producing, in this country, people who can barely read when you see what it is. It was really surprising. It was not people with less than high school. It was high school and even a few people beyond. The problem is even bigger with numeracy, the ability to look at numbers, to use them in work and skills. We have 58 million people with low numeracy skills in this country. That's 30% of the population. And about 70% of those people went to high school or college. So you can ask some questions. What's going on? The interesting thing is sometimes I've mentioned these numbers to people and they'll say, well, you have a large unskilled immigrant population coming into the country. About 3/4 of these people with low skills were born, raised, educated in the United States, got their high school degrees. So for me, a real shocker. So the question is, what economists tell you and what PIAC can potentially tell you, I want to share a little bit of data, is what's the relationship between education and skills? And the conclusion is they are correlated. People with less education tend to have lower levels of skills. People with higher levels of education tend to have higher levels of skills. But it's not perfect. Education is not a quantity. You can't say simply because a person went to college that they have a high level of skills or the other way. What PIAC tells you a lot of is there's quite a bit of variation really at the high school level. You get a mix. And I wanted just to show a graph. We'll test our numeracy if we have a second. Just to look at this graph. And what this is doing is it's showing the 3 levels of high school. Below high school, associate's degree, and then people who go to university. And what you're seeing in each one of these, you're seeing the different levels of skills as PIAC measures them. Low skills to high skills. There weren't a lot of people who had less than high school or had a high level of skills. That's why you see the 3. But what you see here, this is not the United States. This comes out of OECD as a total. It's an average across the 23 countries. But you see a same pattern for the United States. You see it for most countries. But what you'll see is, take a given level of skill and you'll see, yeah, the more education you have, the higher your earnings. We're looking at monthly earnings. But what you see is there's a real increase with skills. I mean, it's obvious, but it's also, you should think that the more people know, the higher their earnings should be. But what you then see is, for instance, in high schools, people who have relatively high skills, and there's a good number of them, are doing better than bachelors, people at the university level. So PIAC, I think, really emphasizes the importance of skills. This holds when, this is looking at literacy, you see even a bigger result with numeracy. And I think one of the things that comes out of PIAC that's really interesting to me, and this is preliminary, you seem to get, you have plenty of people, I wouldn't say you have plenty of people, you have people who can read fairly well, but if they have low numeracy, their earnings aren't necessarily that high. So, where does that get us, I think? If I can sum up, I'd say the studies that we have tell us that education is important, certainly to individuals, also to countries. There's plenty of country-level studies, too. But what the market needs, what the economy, the new economy needs, is not just educated people. People who have high education but relatively low skills. They need skilled workers. So, particularly in the area of numeracy, I think. And I think what we've learned from PIAC, at least in the United States, and you'll see this in other countries too, in the 23 or so PIAC countries, you have more people who have low numeracy than you do low literacy. Just numeracy is a skill that's lacking. And all the evidence from PIAC says you have to include skills. You have to include literacy. Numeracy in particular. And when you do see a benefit that comes, an economic benefit. In addition, I'll just say this too, social benefits. You have more trust in government and better health. A lot of benefits really come out. So I was going to stop with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard from the scientists, the serious people. Now you're going to hear from the social scientists. Social scientists are not backed by that much of statistics and economic data. We try in our field to project into the future, learn from the past. Enver Bey is born in Turkey. His project is Istanbul. And Istanbul is important. Now, as a historian, I have to relate to you that why Istanbul has been, will be important. I am and was born in another Levantine city, Beirut. Now, what is common to both cities is that they are sitting at the edge between the East and the West. In Istanbul, they're actually sitting, the Bosphorus between Europe and Asia. In the case of Beirut, it's because of the various communities and universities. So his leadership coming from that part of the world is actually needed. The vision that would combine together what is understood in the West, what is understood in the East, and try to connect them. This is where we as social scientists, and I'm going to say the challenge of politicians and international experts is precisely about that. It's not really the scientific challenge, because the scientists can always improve. The challenge is between technology and education. Is it true that every time we have an advancement in technology, we have an advancement in social behavior and relations and education, we don't have the full answer because it's very contradictory. If you look, for example, at Rome, ancient Rome, and the law schools that it had, and the intelligentsia that it had, it formed the republic and then the empire, and you see the evolution of humanity from 200 or 400 BC, you will see that we indeed have, as a humanity, developed in technologies, great leaps. I mean, the 19th century, technological advancements, cars, then in the 1940s, the nuclear power, and then beyond that, in '69, we put humans on the moon. That was the first sortie from this planet, and of course, internet. But if you look at the other dimension, for every scientific advancement, we had a disaster. Every car we invented, every technology we invented ended up in the greatest war of all wars, which was supposed to be to end all wars. World War I was about technology, new technology. We got the nuclear power, but we got Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And another 50 years of fear that this would be repeated. We got internet. And many people here in town claim that they invented internet. You know, it's a result of a great effort by many people. But internet, if you look at it today, social media and the rest of communications, it's used by the good guys and the bad guys. It's used to free, and it's used also to spread radical ideas. So we as educators, what we look at right now is basically the evolution of ideas. And this is where education's real measurement is. I remember, since we mentioned our experience as immigrants, and of course I am one of them. I came here 24 years ago. I had one incident at a university in South Florida that told me a lot about how needed I am, but not in sciences and technologies. I went into a classroom, the undergraduate classroom, I don't want to name the university, and I asked them, can anybody tell me where the Middle East is? I thought this would be easy. That would, trigger the discussion and I can go deeper. So a young man stood up and said, yes, sir, it's the other side of the Middle West. Thinking Middle East, Middle West, I thought this is going to be a good place for a job for me. Now, the US today is really confronted to much bigger issues. Let me talk about things that this building talks about and go a little bit beyond the actual serious scientific measurement for education and technology. We've been to Afghanistan for more than a decade. We've spent billions of dollars in Afghanistan. We've spent them on bridges, on buildings, on military, on everything. We've spent them also on education. I read many reports in this building as advisor to some of the lawmakers about how many millions and maybe hundreds of millions of dollars we spent on education in Afghanistan. But what did we do with this money? We built buildings. We built roads. We paid wages. We did not pay attention to what kind of education we were giving. Because a kid who was 10 years old in Afghanistan in 2001 is today the soldier, is today the bureaucrat, is today the adult, and is today the Taliban. So in 11, 12 years, a whole generation has advanced. And the big question we have been asking was, what did we do in 12 years with all that money? For much lesser than that, Enver Bey is building universities and colleges, and generations of people are going through. So where did we make a mistake, if we made a mistake? In Afghanistan, I'm going to take that case, we ignored the two most important factors of change. Where does kids between the age of 0+ and 5 or 6-year-old, where do they spend their time? With whom? Who's that person with whom they are? The mama, the mother. There is an army of mothers in Afghanistan. Have we worked so that we could fund women's organizations, teaching women's organization, educational women organization? That's the real challenge that I've testified about in Congress. Now, from 5, 6 to 13, 14, who is with the kids from 8 a.m. till 4 p.m.? The teacher. Millions of kids were with the teachers. 18,000, another army of Afghan teachers. Have we done enough with them? for them, because with those two elements, we could have helped the Afghani civil society, of course, to evolve in a decade plus to create a new Afghanistan. I'm afraid we have not been able to do so. In comparison, look at Germany after it has been razed completely in World War II. It took them 5-6 years. They didn't just focus on the buildings, they focused on a massive reform of what they were teaching decades before. That led actually to the war. So it's really an issue of ideas, and one of the best projects I've heard about over the past few years was when Enver Bey looked at those 1.8 million Syrian refugees in southern Turkey. I was worried about this population. Most of them are youth. What will happen to them? Most likely they're not going to be back home, as we can see in the near future. Someone has to deal with their education. If we don't, others would. If we don't provide them with this education at all levels, including the university, many others would be very happy. And many others have the money to do it. And you know what they can do with the minds of young men, boys and girls, in 5-6 years from indoctrination. So, bravo for this amazing, unique project from a private sector. And I told Enver Bey that if you as a private sector begin and others will join you in the private sector, this has to be and to become a public sector, a government and an international organization project. I mean, you have been paying trillions of dollars, let's say hundreds of millions of dollars with no results. This will bring results. So, in my last remark, I would say, how do we actually measure? I always get this question, especially from lawmakers. How do you measure that education is improving? Is it the buildings? Are they the pencils? What? In fact, these are values. If that educational system teaches you tolerance on all levels, religion, ethnicity, you're moving forward. If that educational system improves the rights of women, not just the rights, but the perception of women, we are moving forward. Minorities, freedom. But also at the end of that, to actually believe in science, in scientific advancement. That will open the door to medical, agriculture, space, transportation, and the rest. So the answer to that is a vision. That vision was given to us by the founder and by the chairman, and I would like, in conclusion, to thank you again, Enver Bey, all of you who are here on the panel, everybody who's here, and thank you so much for being here. We're going to open the floor for question and answer. Thank you again. I'm going to stand here, and if there are questions, I'll direct it to you. So the panelists will be at the table, at the panel. So if you have any question, you know, you could ask in Turkish or in English or in a third language. I do Arabic and French if you want someone to help you. So please feel free to state your name. If you want to state your organization, that would be great. And then ask the question, tell me who would you like from the panel to answer.
I think the food
is a good sign.
Yeah, click here. Okay. So the members can also...
No, I want to make a joke, but jokes are about timing. The food is standing there, so I don't know if you're going to get any questions.
Okay, we'll open then for the panel if they have any question before we, because we do have a member of Congress who's going to come and deliver final remarks, but I will be very happy if we have... Yes, ma'am? Yeah, if you have a comment, please. Let's hear your voice.
Hi, my name is Selin Hassan. I'm directing Mentor College here, the ESL school, part of BAU International University. And I have seen firsthand what happened to this lost youth that you're talking about. I have spent 1 year in Gaziantep and in the camps of Syrian, where Syrian children were exposed to a lot of trauma. And we have done some projects bringing professors to teach the teachers that are taking place in these camps. And what we have come across is this. The teachers were volunteers and from the camps. And the teachers were themselves been traumatized. But more than that was the people who were teaching these students. I'll just give you a small example. Where there was one person just playing with his cell phone, and everybody was just gathered around him, and we went near him and finding out what he's doing, and he was showing the students some footage that he took when he was in the war, when he shot somebody and went to see if that person was dead. So we're not going to leave teaching to people who have been traumatized and who have been a part of the war themselves. And so if we want to expect anything from these children, we're going to have to gain forces and teach these children the peace process, not to kill. And when I have seen this, I was very disheartened. And then I have also seen some hope. I have seen a 16-year-old girl that said that she would bring peace to Syria, and she has gathered students like herself, and as a peace process, started the students, not the students, but the young people were singing, and they were doing art, and gathered around in this small place, in this camp, and so that they are not going to go and fall victims to violence or be a part of the violence themselves. But they need help. It's not going to take just one 16-year-old with a motivation. It's going to take the whole world to support these 16-year-olds that are going to gather their friends. So, and I have met university professors in camps, and I have met university students in camps. There was one student, a law student, that have lost her mother somewhere. She was wounded, and she was living with her father in a tent. And they were given food twice a day, and she had not, of course she had to leave her studies. And there was a conservatory student that was teaching and playing at the Conservatory of Aleppo, and that was homeless and jobless. So all of these things, I just wanted to remind you of those.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you so much. And as promised, our star is here. We began with a Democrat, but we're going to end the remarks with a representative of the freshly elected Republican majority. But more important for us, for everybody here, Congresswoman Virginia Foxx has been and will continue to be an important player, an actor in promoting education, not just in the United States, but around the world. The last time I met with the Congresswoman, she may not remember that, it was with Congresswoman Sue Myrick at the conference here. I gave her my book, The Coming Revolution, which predicted the Arab Spring, and I still have a picture, which, Congresswoman, I would love to send it to you. We are so pleased that you are with us, and we are waiting for your remarks. Thank you so much, Congresswoman.
Thank you, Walid.
Thank you. Nice to see you too, please.
Hoş geldiniz. Welcome. It's wonderful to see all of you here. We've had a busy day today. I don't know how much you know about what's been going on with the elections for Congress, for our conference and things like that. But I'm delighted to be with you, and I hope you've had a good forum, and I'm sure that you have with the folks that you have here. I have a soft spot in my heart for Bahçeşehir from having been there before in Turkey and speaking, and with you here when you had the opening of your campus here in Washington. And I know of the vision of your leader here for the university, and I'm very proud to be with you on special occasions like this. We're very fortunate to be living in the time that we are living in terms of education. We have the technology that allows cultures and people to be, who are separated by thousands of miles, to be connected. We've never had that situation in the world before. And Bahçeşehir's dedication to providing such wide-ranging opportunities to its students is crucial. And the relationship between the United States and Turkey remains a very important relationship, especially in building an international community and a sense of community across country lines. So what must happen is for students must be prepared for careers in the 21st century. And a part of their preparation obviously needs to be understanding cultures around the world, because our economies are so interrelated and no longer simply tied to one country. So as I said, it's a very exciting time. It's a unique time in education. And I'm really pleased to be a part of what is happening in education across the world. As you may know, I was a university instructor, university administrator, a community college president, and I came from extraordinarily humble beginnings, very humble. I grew up extremely poor, and I give credit to the opportunities that I had in education for the success that I have had in my life, along obviously with God's grace for my life. But I'm very excited again to be involved with what you're doing in a very tangential way. But I compliment all of the folks involved here today for putting together this forum and presenting the ideas that have been presented. So thank you very much for letting me be a tiny part of it and to bask in a real star's shining. I see Walid on TV all the time, and the people who are so involved with Bahçeşehir. Thank you so much for what you do and for providing these opportunities. It's an honor to be here.
Yes. Maybe you should come. And we're going to have an official picture. So. Yeah.
Thank you very much.